Hi,
Hey.
you're live.
Well, good morning. Wherever you are, it could be morning, could be afternoon. Welcome to a live stream, the first live stream that we're doing at Lesson Graham today. This is the beginning of a wonderful interview series. My name is Marlene Cooper Williams. I am the founder and CEO of lessongraham.com. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to this wonderful experience that we're about to have, especially if you're interested in songwriting. And who isn't? Everyone wants to write a song at one point or another in their life. And before we begin, and I introduce my dear friend here, I want to remind you that if you like,
Whoops. There we go. A little bit of, there you go.
I want to remind you to like and subscribe to our channel, which will encourage all of us to get together on a more regular basis. However, I do promise that we will be sharing our musical and academic experiences with the masses as often as possible. Now, I'd like to introduce my dear friend, Alan Roy Scott. Alan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Marlene.
Alan is, as I call, a world-renowned songwriter.
Wow.
He's very humble and, kind of laughs about that. But this is a man who's visited how many countries?
142, baby.
And still climbing, right?
Yeah.
Are there any more left?
Mostly in Africa. I'm going to do an African tour of Mali, Chad, and Congo and all those.
Are you writing songs there for the elephants?
If they'll have me, elephants could probably write songs if they'd like to.
Or we could write songs about elephants.
There you go.
Right. So, so there's always a give and take, with us creative people. And this is why when I met Alan, we had a lot of fun sharing, not just, I have always surrounded myself with many creative people, mostly musicians. And when you get a room full or a deck full of musicians that have been celebrating life, you have an interesting group, and you never know what comes out of it. Right, Alan?
We've had some parties.
So I'd like to start by asking you a few questions, sure, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let's tell everyone, where do you come from?
Wow. Well, that's a very good question. Well, let's see. What's the old joke goes? Well, I started with Marco Polo and Genghis Khan. I was there till the Hun was my second cousin.
And now, and this is why he writes such great songs, because he has all these experiences.
In reality, I'm originally from Chicago, and I grew up in a very interesting politically, social, and cultural time of the 60s. In Chicago, it's a very musical place as well, and a whole bunch. It's a very, I love Chicago. I'm from there. But anyway, I was very involved. My father, who was an unsung hero to me, and I'm inspired by him. A lot of the things I've tried to do in my life. He died way too young at 57, which is young because I'm 67. But he was very involved in the music scene in Chicago when I grew up. He owned car dealerships, and the point is that I was exposed to gospel and soul and R&B music, which he was very much a part of at that time. Chess family, the Chess Records was our family friend. So I was, as a very young child, I was completely exposed to gospel and R&B music, which is pretty strange because obviously I don't probably look like I would be doing that. But that was a big influence for me when I was growing up, which came back later. So I grew up in that environment, and you want me to continue on from there?
And then obviously you went on to study music.
Well, actually, no. Yes, of course. The answer is I actually was an actor. I trained to be an actor. I was a musical theater person, so I know Brigadoon, Oklahoma, as well as anything else. But I was very involved in musical theater and acting, and I went to school for that. But I had always played music at the same time. High school choir, high school plays. I had bands to impress the girls when I was 15, all those good things.
Didn't you go to Berkeley though?
I did yeah. Well, I was saying I went to college for musical theater and composition because I was doing both at the same time, but I concentrated on theater for a little while. And I reached a day in 1975 where I literally went cold turkey, an epiphany day where it's like, I don't want to audition for Godspell ever again or a dog food commercial. And I'd always had the musical background. But the point is that I am basically self-taught. I self-taught in high school. I self-taught myself piano by just learning every note of the things I was into: Elton John, Billy Joel, Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder. So I taught myself a lot. And then I went to music school and I did counterpoint and harmony and theory and added on the musical knowledge.
Was that difficult for you? Because we as highly trained musicians and teachers, which I have been a teacher for more years than I care to admit. We always say that those people that are self-taught and trained and untrained are very hard to teach.
And I agree. And I think the answer, and we're longtime friends, and I adore you. So I think the point is there's a middle place.
Yes.
Because I certainly have nothing but the utmost respect for well-trained people. And I went to Interlochen in my high school, and I was around all the prodigy classical pianists and being
what I call the musical stars.
I was around all of them in my high school summer. So my point is I have a great deal of respect for that. I just went my own route where I have merged the two, I believe.
And believe it or not, I learn a lot from people like you. Because I was trained with all the theory, the harmony, the regimentation, the discipline of practice for hours and hours, and so on. And those people that taught me would be just appalled if I wanted to study jazz or improvisation. So my big rebellion in life was to sneak out of my house when I was a teenager and go to my friend's house and play jazz.
Wild woman,
because my parents were dead set against that. So that was my rebellion, and I think that infuses all of these styles together, which makes you a good songwriter.
I think the key word for me that applies to all of it, for me anyway, is like passion.
Yeah,
and I think some people say with technique, it's not as much about passion as it is technique, but that's not true.
No,
it is. It's just a different application of the core thing that you need, whether it's classical music, teaching, pop music, R&B, rap, it's about the passion of music.
Well, the message,
the connection, the message.
This is why I'm so passionate about teaching children, or actually you could be 4 or 104. Music knows no age.
No.
And this is why I am so passionate about making sure that there is music education in everyone's life.
That's what
and especially for young people, because it organizes the mind. And I could go on and on. Concentration, coordination, and you get out there and you can compete, and it brings a world of goodness to your life. So tell me, so all the people that you brought this wonderful passion for songwriting, who have you worked with? Who did you write for?
Here, laundry list. So let's see.
Name drop.
So I had a 20-year period. I became a professional songwriter in 1978. My first hit song was during the disco period. I had a lot of hair and bell bottoms. And I was living in New York when I made the transition from New York. So I was around the disco era, Studio 54. I worked for all the R&B artists of the day: Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, the Spinners. I met all the Jackson family except Michael Jackson. But
we met him because I told you that our first music school, we taught the Jackson
Five. Well, there you go. So
and even though Michael used to say he never had a voice lesson, I have the receipts to prove wrong.
So they were all from Chicago, as you know, Gary, Indiana. And so I was signed to Motown, which is a very famous company, as a writer for 5 years. So in addition to being a staff writer where I was under exclusive contract, I work with all kinds of artists. My biggest thing as a songwriter is I'm a chameleon. which means I can tell you that I have written songs for or with in all genres, everything from Ricky Martin to Celine Dion to Gloria Estefan to I had a big rap song with a very famous rap artist named Notorious B.I.G., which is kind of a long story, but it's my name's on the credits. That's what matters.
Right.
And I've worked with Cher, and I've worked, I mean, a whole slew of famous artists, you name, in all genres is my point. Internationally as well. I've done lots and lots of songs for TV. I had a song in the movie Top Gun, a very big thing.
Right.
Of course, Karate Kid. I was on the staff of Fame, the TV show, with Debbie Allen as a writing specialty material. So I have been across the board. I'm a veteran journeyman, behind the scenes, A-level guy. I wasn't the star. I didn't try to be the artist. I can sing, I do sing, but I was really always about writing with and supporting whatever project I'm part of. And I'm still that way. And that's what I still do now. And that's why at the age of 67, I'm still there. I'm still doing it. It's not about my own artist persona.
Well, I've always felt that, and one of the reasons that I personally went into education as opposed to performance is that I feel that education is something that everyone needs. And if you're looking for a way to monetize your talents, which, it really makes us lucky if we can do that.
Yeah.
Then for me, it was about education. First of all, my hands stopped growing at a young age. And the professors that I studied with at the University of Minnesota from a very young age told me, well, you're very talented, but you can forget being a concert pianist. Your hands are too small and they're not going to grow much more. So you'd probably make a good teacher. Well, of course, that day when he told me that, I was devastated. But the more I thought about it, and I think I might have been about 9 or 10 years old at the time, I realized that was probably what I was going to do in my life. And with that, I did become a teacher, of course, and have had many successes with many music schools and teaching the masses. And of course, being able to get to meet people such as yourself and have the musical experiences that are so enriching to a person's life. So, and songwriting, of course, is such an extension of our personalities and our emotions. And naturally, you can feel all kinds of highs and lows through a good song.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
So you've worked with some of the heavy hitters, that's, and of course, I think one of the funniest moments that I had was receiving a phone call from you when you were on an ice sled. We were in some very cold country.
Greenland. And funny enough, my big excitement of the week is I actually have a photo with the King of Denmark because in Denmark, the Queen just abdicated. And Prince Frederick, he was in Greenland on a cross-country tour. And I was in a music festival in Greenland. And he saw a performance that I was part of. And he came backstage and went home with the musicians. And now he's the king. So, hey, kings, queens, and dictators I have known in my travels. So.
Yeah, well, some are worth talking about, some aren't. So basically, your songwriting experiences have reached into the global realm.
I have written in all languages. I do interpretations. I've had songs recorded in Chinese and Russian and German. I mean, all kinds of languages. I did a lot of work in Asia in the 80s. My travels, the thing that I'm most excited about when I brag about 142 countries, it's not just rattling off places I've been. It's that was almost all through music, that I've seen the world. And I was very, very involved in the 80s, going to music festivals in very crazy places. A lot of the communist countries had music festivals, and I would go competing, representing America in Poland and Kazakhstan, Czechoslovakia. So I have a very...
You gotta write a book.
Well, it's called Couches I Have Known or Passport to a Musical Planet. Take your pick. But
I think they like the passport.
Yeah, it's a little bit more regal than Couches I Have Known. But anyway, no, I've had music is like a pendulum. And when you've been at it a long time, whether teaching or however, you see things come and go, and it goes around and around. And I have seen that music is the universal language. I've walked it,
Well,
I've
yes.
talked it, it is, and that is
And
true.
I have often stood back at gatherings that I would host at my home. And one time in particular, I looked out on my yard and it was filled with about 30 people. And there were people, every continent in this world was represented.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, if only the United
Yeah,
Nations
yeah.
could come here tonight
Yeah.
and see how well we all get along with our differences,
Yeah.
with our
Yeah.
our skin colors are different, our
Yeah.
religions are different, our
Absolutely.
politics are different, but yet we were all happy.
That's absolutely the power, the
And
potential power.
and
of
that's
music,
what
yes.
brings us together was
Yes.
the universal language of
Mhm.
music.
Absolutely.
So definitely, I always said it's an easy commodity for me to sell.
Yeah, I think if I did it all over again, I might like to be like a diplomat or an ambassador. I'm a diplomatic kind of person, haha. But I always considered myself a musical ambassador. Actually,
Well, let's talk about music bridges, by the way.
Okay, that's another part of my life.
I'll introduce it slightly. This is how I met Alan. Is a friend of ours said, I have a friend who is working on a project. It's called Music Bridges, where he has brought musicians from our country, USA, together with other countries such as Cuba.
Well, it was where politics, I intentionally created songwriting as a tool to bridge the gaps in culture and society. And we would intentionally, I chose difficult political situations like bringing, and it was celebrity based. So, celebrities usually helps when you have celebrities because people, but, I took a bunch of famous people to the Soviet Union in 1988, and we wrote with Russians back then. Talk about timeliness now with the craziness of the world we're in now.
I think people should start singing more.
Well, you're right.
And they should start writing more because maybe that'll help to soothe some of the savagery.
But in those places, in Cuba and Russia and Indonesia and Ireland and all the politically sensitive places I went at that time, it was all about bringing people together and writing songs and then performing and singing. And it was all about the better side of what is possible for us as humans, but through songwriting, through music.
A lot to learn.
So I was very proud of I impacted a lot of people, and I've changed a lot of lives.
And Music Bridges is such a great idea. So hopefully you can have another Music Bridges event, coming up one of these days.
I'm
planting
my flag as a European now. I'm going to be a.
Yes, Alan has added Sweden to his.
This is live. I think my fiance. Hi, Gunilla. My lovely lady in Sweden. I'm moving to Sweden. Yeah.
Well, the globe is really quite small now. So even though you'll be there, you're really going to be
back. I'm everywhere. I'll be back and forth, of course.
So is it difficult to get music either published or promoted? Let's talk for aspiring songwriters.
Oh God, this is the hard part. This feels like it weighs like 900 pounds to try to venture into this subject. Okay, so let's see if I can condense. How would I condense this massive, weighty subject? It goes like this.
Keep it simple.
It goes like this. Things have changed, obviously. Back in the beginning, it was a whole different time of CDs and albums, and there was a lot more money involved before the current time. But back then, it was all live musicians. When I started out and I was writing songs, I played piano. I was working with all live musicians. So one big change now, of course, is everything is technology-based, which is a good thing too, that you can write with someone in Alaska and here. I don't personally love remote writing as much as live, but it's a way, it's possible. From the business perspective, which you're talking about, when I came up, I had a family, kind of like my mommy was my publisher. You mentioned the word publisher. She was like my mother, and I had a manager who was like my daddy. And as a songwriter, I would get paid money, like a good boy, to go write songs, and I had all these people in my camp. Now the world has changed where everybody is much more on their own. Publishers don't really matter as much anymore. Now you need to be able to learn how to produce yourself, promote yourself, market yourself. Obviously, social media, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all the social media means, Spotify. This is how one does music today. You have to learn so many more things than I had to know. Again, I made a joke. All I had to do was write songs and they gave me money. Oh, hey, how about that? Now you have to work much harder, but the reward is that you can be much more, what's the word? Independent and in control of things of your own making. There was a lot more. It was more like there was a castle on the hill. Everybody wanted to be in the castle, and only a few people could get through the gates. And once you were in the gates, you had a nice party for a decade or two, where you could always. And now there's no castle. There's no gatekeepers. Everybody is their own castle, their own gatekeeper. That's one big analogy that pays. But I still think it's just as important to do things in the new way. And I pride myself on still being very active, very current. I go to all kinds of camps and gatherings in Europe, around the world. And I'm just as hopeful and impressed about the possibilities of the future. And education is a constant.
Well,
that will has been and will always have the same value. The apparatus around it may change.
Well, and we talk about you talk about how writing in person versus virtually, and the education system has definitely changed. Some parts of it are good and some are not.
Yeah.
But we have embraced the virtual process. As a matter of fact, during COVID, all of my personal private students who were being taught in their homes by me, of course, I no longer could go to their home, or they couldn't come to me. So we put everybody online, and it worked out so well and so seamless that when COVID came to kind of an end, the family said, "You don't have to come back here.
Right. Don't come back.
We'll just keep you online." So many of my students have decided that they wouldn't, they didn't need me to come personally to their house. Although we do recitals in person and so on, but sometimes it's a little bit of a hybrid. But you also, I guess the point I'm coming to is, what's important is that I always say the one constant in life is change.
Of course, absolutely.
And
without
you have to pivot and adjust to the changes in society, whether you're a music teacher, whether you teach language arts, or so during the COVID, we of course, I recognized the education challenges that were in front of us, and created Lessengram for that purpose. And then, of course, being that I'm a musician and a music teacher, we combined the academic world with the arts, with music, and we have a what I call the holistic student. If your child needs a science tutor or a math tutor, great, and that child may also be interested in playing the piano or the guitar or whatever. Bagpipe, right?
Always the best.
And I'll always find a teacher for that. Doesn't matter.
A good bagpipe teacher for me. Oh wow!
Not at the moment.
Fantastic.
Not at the moment, but I promise you,
I know you.
I'll dig.
You'll find one. I know you will.
So I think it's a holistic approach that helps the student from so many different angles, and this is what we're all about.
I have a slogan which is making a joke, a slogan which I say that if you are doing music because you think you're going to it's about rich or the world we live in, it's so commercial and everything is about, I want to be rich and famous or blah, 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 blah. I always say that you have to do the music for the love. And look, I have had success. I've made some money. I've lost money. I've owned all of it. I've traveled. I work with a lot of famous people, blah, 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 blah. And it's wonderful. But, I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because it starts with what you teach what you believe about music as a passion, again, passion, as a reason for doing it, as a way of life. It's, as they say, music isn't something you do, it's who you are. At least that's one slogan I use as a professional musician. You know?
Which brings me to the subject of rejection. Sorry about that, folks. He'll get in control.
I'm cool.
Anyway, when I use the word rejection, people often talk about how difficult it is if you go, for instance, to an audition and you think that you're prepared for it and you are then rejected, or you write a song that you think is really dynamite, and you give it to whomever, and they reject it. So how does that feel?
I have war stories for day about that, but I'm going to bring it down to a personal philosophy that I use to explain that a little bit, because I've had songs that were recorded 25 years after they were written by a series of fate and circumstance. But I want to say, I look at it this way. I call it the almost theory. This is how you test your perseverance to keep going through the rejection. In other words, I've had successes, and that's fine. But what do we do with success? Usually it's like, yeah, okay, that's good, cool. And we all have failures where we get crushed and broken, and that's life, and we have to dust ourselves. But the ones that test you are the almost, the ones that you have no control over, where you beat yourself up, an almost. I spent a day in the studio with Quincy Jones and Ray Charles recording my song. I sat there and was in the room with Quincy Jones and Ray Charles for a whole day in a recording studio. And that's there, but in the end, the song didn't make it to the album because he had laryngitis.
Oh, dear.
Now, I can't blame myself for that.
No.
I could. But that's my point. That's rejection, and that I had no control over. And that made me stronger to brush that off and keep going. So I have tons of those kind of stories. And that's when veterans get together, we talk about our wars. They call them war stories.
Oh, yes.
Whatever you want to call them. Our experience stories like that. That's how you deal with rejection. You fight, you double down. What's those old expressions from sports? Double down. Right. Yeah. Pick yourself up off the floor.
Yeah. You
have lunch.
Yes.
Get back in there.
You keep moving. You keep going. You keep moving forward. Just put on those blinders and go straight ahead. So, don't look left or right.
In fact, if you don't have rejection, you'll never make it, because it's part of it.
It certainly is. So you obviously are still forging ahead in the music and the songwriting world. And like, I always say, people ask me, don't you think you should be retired by now, Marlene? And I don't even know what that word means, actually. I love teaching. I love being involved with Les and Graham and seeing the help that we're able to provide students and matching them with the right tutors so that they can feel like they've accomplished and achieved. And then certainly listening to students play that you take
recitals.
that you take from day one, and sometimes my students will be age 5 and when they begin, and then I say goodbye to them when they go off to college at age 17, 18 years old. So I have long-term relationships with my students and their families, and then that you've given them the legacy of music for their life. So this is one of the reasons that at my age, and I was
going to say, I'm 12 and you're about 14, right?
Well, what did you say?
I definitely feel 12.
And I'm 77, and people say, "What are you still doing?" At this age. And I say, piano teachers don't. Pardon me for saying this, but piano teachers don't retire. We just kind of disappear at our pianos. We die at our pianos with the last chord
on a C chord.
Oh no, I never C. Never C. Maybe something more exotic like a F sharp minor 7th. For anyone out there who's
as the old saying goes, it's a beautiful life.
Yes,
I mean, life's a beautiful life, but a life in music is a beautiful
really,
life within the beautiful
well,
life.
I want to thank you for spending your time today with our audience, and certainly anyone who's listening to this podcast or live stream today, please give us a call. You know, I love to field calls, even if you're not interested in studying an instrument or getting some academic help. I am very happy, as is our team. We have a great team of people, wonderful education director and our marketing teams, and we're here to really help the community go in the right direction educationally, and we try to um, develop a very personal and individualized program for each and every student. We train people one student at a time. So, Alan, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You know, please.
Thank you to everybody that might be
please
paying
enjoy
attention.
your successes
Yes,
around the world, and let us know. We'll bring you back in about 6 months, and maybe you'll have a few more
and support Lesson Graham. This is an amazing friend and human being. And Lesson Graham is a wonderful thing that has been created by a wonderful
and remember,
veteran person.
Well, thank you. I should be humble like you. Now, if you like this program today, please like us and subscribe, or call us. That's 805-324-6006, or go to our website, lessongraham.com. Thank you very much, Alan. Have
My
a
pleasure,
beautiful
Marlene.
day.
Thank you.